Right then, Nick Krauser here, and welcome to the 20th edition of the Womanizers Bible podcast. Well, I have to say that is double the number of episodes I thought I was going to put out when I first had this idea back in April. So, to end of the year, bring everything full circle, I decided to go back to my original announcement post back in April on my blog, where I was asking for reader questions, right? Like, what kind of stuff do you want me to answer in this podcast? So, if I remember right, I actually took my entire first podcast just answering 1/3 of one guy's question. That pretty much got us started off on the whole in-depth mind wank. So what I'm going to do now is it's more like a question answer sweep up. I'm going to just run through, starting at the first comment, and I'm going to answer pretty much every question just off the cuff. Right, so none of these answers are planned. I'm going to tell you the first thing that comes to my mind is if you'd literally just asked me the question in a cafe and I had to come up with an answer. So that's in contrast to most of these podcasts, which I think out in advance what I'm going to talk about. So let's get away with it. So comment number 1 from Cheer. He asks, how should we North American guys adjust the London day game model to suit North American women? Okay, well, the facetious answer is don't bother, just go after European women. They're way hotter, way nicer. But that's obviously not so useful if you don't live in New York, right? What happens if you're stuck with North American women, or for some reason you actually prefer them? Right, what do you do? Well, I'm afraid to say that I don't really know, because I've spent a grand total of 1 week doing, since I learned game, I spent 1 week in America, and of that I spent about 3 days doing day game, and I think I did about 7 sets, because I was in San Diego in December. I think this was December 2011 with Mick, and there just weren't any girls. They'd literally all gone the week before. They'd all gone off to wherever for the winter break, so there was just nothing to shoot at. We opened pretty much every hot girl we could find, and that was about 7 or 8 sets each. And I got 2 instant dates off that. One of them with a very cute Mexican girl in a mall, who on the instant date told me she was 14. So I was like, oh fuck, so I quickly got myself out of that. So anyway, that is the limit of my North American girl experience in North America. Now, I have fucked a few North American girls in England, and I've had a bunch of near misses with them as well. So what I found, so I'll start with those girls. Those are the girls I actually know a little bit about. Now, what I'd say is, once North American girls go to Europe, their mindset completely changes. Right, women are chameleons. They take on the colour of their surroundings, right? Because they're herd animals and they want to fit in, and they're terrified of being outgrouped. So what happens is, in North American culture, they will act North American. But as soon as you bring them over to Europe, they are a little bit discombobulated. All those familiar social ties are cut. They are no longer feeling like they're the princess in their own castle. They're a little bit out of their element, perhaps a little intimidated by the girls around them, especially because they must see in Europe the girls are just nicer, right? They must look at these girls and think, fucking hell, she's hotter, she's slimmer, she's more feminine, she's better dressed, she has better manners, she has better body language, she's more interesting. They must feel this in a certain way, the way guys will feel it, like if you just suddenly walked into, like, I don't know, like in Abercrombie and Fitch shop, where all the dudes are like models, right? Like all the staff, they're all like these, like, look like they're off Baywatch and stuff. You feel it. You don't even have to logically process it. You just feel it. You think, fucking hell, these guys have something more than what I have. And so I think girls feel that, North American girls, when they come to Europe, I think. And they feel it in Japan, I know that for sure. There's a whole bunch of blogs of North American women just whining that none of the men pay any attention to them, and that they feel like Godzilla next to these cute little Japanese girls. So, in addition to all the normal anonymity, tourism, urban flux that you can leverage in day game in a Central European city, or say New York, in addition, if you're a European in Europe and you meet a North American girl, I think you've got that in your favour as well. So the girls just don't. They take an instinctive hit to their self-perception of what their own SMV is, and that makes them a bit easier. The other thing, of course, is North American girls are so vastly more slutty than European girls, like order of magnitude more slutty. Now, the sexual marketplace doesn't actually give up a lot of easily obtainable, reliable statistics, but based on my overall assessment of what I know of American girls, what American guys have told me compared to my knowledge of European girls, I'd guess that American girls are approximately 5 times sluttier than European girls. Their notch counts are like 5 times higher for the equivalent girl. You know, if you take a mid-level slut or mid-level girl in New York, she's probably fucked 5 times as many guys as that equivalent demographic in a European city. Now again, that's a good thing if you're just trying to do all selected sex, because North American girls are basically closer to sex. Right? The way I think of it is this: is a European girl, and the further you go east towards Russia, the stronger this happens. It's a little bit easier to get them attracted, and well, certainly for me. But the distance from her being attracted and fancying you to her actually sleeping with you, especially under a casual sex frame rather than a relationship, it's a very big step, right? There's all sorts of things that can happen between her fancying you and even fancying you and being horny and being available. There's still extra steps to do before you fuck her, usually. So last minute resistance in Europe is very real. I think European players have the best ability to overcome last minute resistance, because it's a very, very real obstacle in Europe. Now, what I've found with American girls is they basically don't have last minute resistance. Getting the initial attraction is harder for me, but once they're attracted, they're so much more likely to just fuck. There's like they're more like men in that respect. Is that, you know, like, if you fancy a girl, you'll fuck her. It's as simple as that, right? There's no weird convoluted route between the I fancy her to the I want to fuck her, right? It's a straight line and very short. And I think American girls are like that. So the American girls I've dated, and by the way I include Canadians in this as well, I've got a bit more experience of Canadians than Americans, is the only ones who, you know, were like near misses. It was logistical near misses. It wasn't them giving me LMR, it was logistics. Like one particular girl I remember from New York is she came out on a date telling me she wanted to fuck in text messages, and then in the bar we just couldn't meet, we couldn't find each other. It was a really, really busy bar in Camden, and her iPhone was like a American SIM, didn't have mobile internet and wouldn't send messages on a UK network, and being a girl she was too fucking dumb to use like cloud Wi-Fi. So what literally happened is I waited her for an hour in a really, really busy bar, wondering why she wasn't there and why she hadn't messaged me and why she wasn't replying to a couple of texts I sent, while she was sitting at the other side of the bar wondering where I was. And then, you know, after an hour she went home, and really weird. But anyway, that was a near miss by like dumbass logistics, not last minute resistance. My theory on that is, like, North American girls, basically, I think American culture breaks down last minute resistance for you. There's just something in the air about America. Now I'm talking about coastal cities here. I don't know about Midwest and all that sort of stuff. I'm talking about East Coast, West Coast, you know, the degenerate parts. Is they talk about like casual sex being empowering, right? Like the Sex and the City stuff, the 50 Shades of Grey stuff. It's like the woman is taught by like sex positive feminists, by, you know, the degenerate media, whatever. She's basically taught that she should be actively seeking casual sex. And this I've heard from a bunch of New York players, that a lot of the women, at least a sufficiently large subset of them that you can feed off them for day game, they go out wanting to get laid, right? They go out at night trying to get laid. Like, that just doesn't happen in Europe. It's so rare to find a European girl who goes out with that in her mind. A European girl goes out to have fun. You know, she's amenable to guys approaching her, but she's more than happy to just go home unfucked, right? And that's what most of them do most of the time. So, what does this mean for adjusting the London day game model? Well, I think you're going to be better off talking to the LDM guys who've got extensive North American experience. But I would say this is once you're getting the IOIs, right, you know she's attracted. Just assume the frame if she wants to fuck. Assume the frame that there's no LMR, and pounce in the moment. Don't bother trying to take the number. Don't bother trying to set up dates. Don't do all these sorts of things that work very well in Europe, because in North America, I think they're either going to be seen as weakness by the girl, or your moment's just going to pass. So there, that's what I think, Chair. Hope it's helpful. Probably isn't. Right then, comment number 2 from Beta to PUA, or Sigma Lifestyle. He's now blogging once every 4 months or so. Right, his question is, how workable do you think the Euro jaunts would be for the average guy who only has 5 weeks holiday per year? Would it be worthwhile to do, say, a long weekend somewhere, followed by maybe 3 months of long game, then back for another long weekend to collect the flags with the girls that you've been long gaming? I'm thinking you need at least a week each time. Also, what would you say are your top 3 Euro jaunt cities? Alright, well, I think he's basically answered the question himself for that. Yeah, not everyone is lucky enough to be like myself or Tom or Eddie or whatever, where we basically don't have a real job and we're free to travel whenever we feel like it. I appreciate that is a rather unusual situation that's difficult to replicate. And even just back when we had real jobs and lived in London, at least if you're living in London or you're living in New York, you have the ability to go out after work and hit on birds. The girls are there, right? These are vast anonymous urban cities. It's not the same if you live in fucking Ipswich, right? Or you live in some small Yorkshire town, or buttfuck Iowa or wherever it is, right? Like where there's simply not the girls around, right? Then you've got to make trips. So I appreciate that there's logistical issues going on. So assuming you have difficult logistical issues, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'll start with the guys living in buttfuck Iowa or Ipswich. Basically, you've just got to go and spend the weekend in London, or if you're in the northwest, Manchester, or if you're out in so long as you within a few hours of a major anonymous city like in New York, for example, I would recommend what you do is, rather than sarge out your own area, which is just a lot of effort, move just for the weekend, overnight as well, get a room on Airbnb for Saturday night. So just Saturday morning, get the train into London, do your day game. You've got your logistics if you get lucky. Overnight there, get up on Sunday, do more day game, get the train home. You can get all your sets done there and just accept you're not really going to get much done during the week, and get your apprenticeship done that way. What I was advising someone recently who day games in Newcastle, my hometown, where I've done literally one set ever in my hometown. I just don't bother. I like to switch off here. But I was saying to him, like, look, okay, you can get sets done on the main street, and yeah, you can, when university's in, go around the uni and try it, but it's just a lot harder than it needs to be. So I was saying to him, look, what you really should do is just fly to Prague, right, or Krakow, just because the peculiarity of Newcastle is there are 2 good flights, direct budget flights out of Newcastle, one to Krakow, one to Prague, and I think they're designed for stag do's, so they leave on Thursday and they come back on Monday. So my advice there is just take the Friday and the Monday off work every now and then, and just have a long weekend hitting it hard, do your apprenticeship there, and maybe you get lucky. And like Beta the PUA said, if you get some strong leads that you can't close, get them on WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook, do the long game, as I go into extreme detail in day game mastery. And then when you've ticked off the checklist, you can go back and see them and try and close them. And the third way, a little bit more long term, is what I call oil rigging, based on the system that we have in England for people who work out in the North Sea in oil drilling platforms. Imagine you get something similar out in like Alaska and stuff if you're American. But basically, what you do is you set aside a certain period, say 3 months, to work hard, and then you spend 3 months not working. So a couple of Russian girls I know who live out in Thailand right now, they're saying there's a lot of Western guys like this, like some of them literally oil rig workers, where they'll go do 3, 4, 5, 6 month contracts back in Europe. They're just working like dogs, saving money, and then they spend the rest of the year living in Pattaya or Bangkok or Phuket or whatever, living the dream. And there's more girls out there, so that's also an option. Now that obviously requires a more upheaval to your life, right? So you've just got to ask yourself, for your own personal position, like, can you do that without impacting your career too negatively? Is it lucrative enough that you can support yourself by only working a certain portion of the year? And of course, how much do you want the women compared to, the quality that's around you if you don't make this change? So every guy is going to make his own decision there. But it's not like the only way to do this is to get passive online income like I do, right? There are other routes if you turn your mind to it. But one thing I would say is, if you're in a current situation where you're working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, in a shitty city that's got no real game opportunities, like, you really need to start thinking like, why are you there? Like, why are you there working in that office job? I mean, what good is that money doing you, after the government takes half of it off you anyway? That the job itself probably saps your spirit and kills your vibe, and that money and career advancement that you're going for, where's it going to get you? Now, again, I'm not saying don't do this. I'm saying think about it, right? Logically think about it. Now, if you're lucky and you landed a real dream job in somewhere that has great training potential, professional qualification, and if you just stick at it, work hard, 5-6 years from now, you're going to be banking, mad stacks, then do it, right? But if by contrast you're just working as a, salesman in a mobile phone shop, right, there's no future to that. So why are you working that hard? You want to make some serious decisions, and that might be just bin the whole thing and move to another city. Okay, so also from beta to PUA, what would you say are your top 3 Eurozone cities? Well, that's like how long's a piece of string. So what do I think? Well, there's only a limited number of good Eurozone cities, and I haven't actually been to all of them. So, for example, I've never tried game in Belgium or Holland or Germany. Well, I spent about 2 days trying it in Germany on a business trip in Frankfurt when I was like really new to game, but I haven't been back since I started getting good at games. So basically, there's certain places I just can't advise on, right? I've heard Madrid's good, but never been. I know Sam Django went out there for a while and liked it. I've heard Porto is hit and miss from Eddie and Tom, that there's girls, but there's just not many of them. I've heard Munich's really good. I've heard Berlin is the closest thing Central Europe has to a London or a New York in terms of being really big, really sleazy, really degenerate, and girls who are up for day game, but also a few quality issues. I've heard Amsterdam's quite good if you do it properly. So these things I've heard of, but I don't have personal experience, so I've always gone farther east. So what's relevant? Well, first thing is, what sort of girls do you like? I mean, that should be obvious. Go where you like the type of girls. Do you like Scandinavian looking girls? Go to Scandinavia. Do you like Russian sort of girls? Go to Russia, right? Do you like Mediterranean girls? Go to Spain, go to Italy, right? So there's that, right? Pretty much every country has a capital city that is big and has some day gameable area. Second, what sort of girls like you? Now, if you're a beginner, you might not really know this, but the more day game you do, you start to spot the patterns of which girls tend to respond well to you. So, for example, Slavic girls and Balkans girls respond well to me. So I know I'm going to do better in those countries than I'm going to do in the Mediterranean. Right? Spanish and Italian girls, Portuguese girls, I mean, I've fucked girls from those countries, but generally speaking, I don't get much return out of them. Most of those girls just don't really give a shit about me. So figure that out. That's going to impact your decision. Third, cost of living. generally speaking, the further east you go, the cheaper it gets, but also the less comfortable amenities you get if you're used to a comfortable Western lifestyle. And also you start to get more culture shock as it becomes more and more alien. I mean, Slavic culture is weird if you're Western European. It's very much an acquired taste, and some people just can't handle it. I love it, but a lot of people just can't handle it. They can't handle that oppressive Slavic coldness. Okay, another issue is just logistics for getting there. Right now, if you live somewhere like London, you can go anywhere really easily. But if you live like I do in Newcastle, there's only so many flights out there to so many different cities. So in Newcastle, the only easy cities to get to are Prague and Krakow for places where you have day game. So that means I can do Warsaw because that's an easy train journey up from Krakow. But if I want to go to somewhere like Kiev, I've got to either do a bunch of changes, say like flying via Heathrow or Paris, or I've got to go to Krakow, then get the train up to Warsaw, and then get a shuttle flight from Warsaw to Kiev, right? It's a ball ache. Whereas if you're in London, there's a direct flight from London to Kiev, right? So that's going to impact your decision as well. And then lastly, some cities are more suited to guys with different levels of development. What I mean by this is there are certain cities that are well known for being good for beginners, in other cities which are known for being really tough unless you're really good. So good beginner cities, well, I'd say Oslo. Girls are really chatty and easy to stop there, and they're pretty slutty. So Oslo's quite good. I know way back daygame.com used to run a bunch of boot camps there, right? They found it very good for beginners. Prague is pretty good for beginners as well. Again, a lot of girls who are just willing to chat, right? You don't get blown out a lot in Prague. Where else? I've heard Berlin's good, although I haven't personally tested it. Let's see, Krakow is a good place to go if you're Asian. If you've got any kind of like coffee colour in your skin, Poland is... It's kind of funny because at the moment there's like big gangs of like white guys, like nationalists, walking around Poland threatening to beat up anyone with brown skin. There's Rush recently related. And I mean, that's a political issue, not for me to comment here. But it's a problem, right? Like, the browner you are, the more trouble you're likely to get as you go east. However, there's something unique about Poland where the girls are happy to fuck the brown guys. I've never known any other country in Europe where brown players, and by that I mean like pretty much Asians, right, like Indians or Pakistanis or whatever, the girls will fuck them. Now, not every girl, and you're going to get more polarized responses, and some of them are going to look at you like, are you a Syrian refugee? But I got a couple of friends who are brown who do very, very well in Poland, and of course Rush spent a hell of a long time in Poland and he's pretty brown, and he had good reactions there. So there's something weird about Poland, I don't know why. So those, I'd say, are kind of like beginner cities. So in Poland would be somewhere like Poznan, right? Like, that's where we used to live. Poznan is known for being it's a student town. It's a bit slutty, and it's relatively easy to open and get hook point there. The girls are dirty. The girls will fuck. Polish girls do fuck. They're much easier to fuck than, say, Russian girls or Ukrainian girls. Fuck for free, that is. Okay, so that's like the beginner places. Intermediate places, well, that's basically everywhere that's not either beginner or advanced. So that's by the advanced places. Well, I'd say Zagreb, Belgrade, Sarajevo, Kiev, where else? Minsk, possibly Riga. Riga's all about the quality. It's like, what quality are you willing to take for whether it's easy or hard. On Tallinn as well, same thing. Depends what quality you're willing to go for. So basically, all these cities have in common is a very, very high level of quality, or at least at the top end of quality. There's lots and lots of the girls, right? In Belgrade, in Zagreb, in Minsk, whatever, you don't have to look very hard to find 8s and 9s, right? So for advanced guys, that's great. That's where the quality's at. But the downside is it's really, really tough to fuck these girls in these countries. Like I said earlier about North American girls, these girls are like the opposite, right? For these girls, simply being attracted and horny is like getting the girl attracted and horny is just the foot in the door. It's a long, long trip from there to fucking them, usually. They are very, very traditional countries. The girls have a very high expectation in terms of how much you're going to invest in them and the relationship you'll give them. They have very, very low notch counts. I mean, every town has its super sluts, but these girls have really low notch counts. Like often, like one. A 23-year-old girl might have fucked one guy before. Which probably sounds incomprehensible for anyone listening to this who's in New York, right? But if you're good at game, the rewards are worth it. Right. So what's the difference between a beginner and an intermediate and an advanced city? Well, a beginner city, you'll just get lots and lots of good reactions, lots of smiles, lots of hook points, and lots of flaky numbers. You might even get lots of dates. Advanced cities, it's the opposite. You're going to get some really brutal blowouts. You won't get IOIs. Girls will just eye roll and push you out the way. You'll get girls like, what do you want? Why are you talking to me? You'll get just rejected, right? No, I don't want to give you my number. Go away, right? You get a lot of that. So that's why I say beginner versus advanced cities. As a beginner, is just not going to be able to handle that kind of blowout. I think Tom's put up a video somewhere about why is day game abroad harder than at home, and he lists a whole bunch of reasons. And but the gist of it is that going abroad is extremely high pressure, because you're by yourself or just with a couple of mates. You're completely cut off from your own social structures. Everything's unfamiliar. You feel a bit of an outsider, and there's nothing going on except the girls, right? It's not like you have a social circle there. It's not like you have your job there. So everything is like magnified, and your outcome dependence shoots right up, and your vibe becomes really, really fragile and hard to maintain. So if you're getting a run of blowouts for a few days straight, you're just going to want to kill yourself. So my recommendation is always start with the beginner cities, build up the reference experiences that you are jaunting works, that you can do it, that you enjoy it. Even if you're not fucking the girls, at least you're getting like numbers and getting dates and maybe getting makeouts and stuff. Build up those reference experiences so that when you do try other cities where you get bad responses, you can always fall back on those reference experiences and think, well, look, it's not that I'm shit, it's just that this town's hard. Okay, next question from Beta to POA. Lover provider. Do you ever have to deal with girls who only want relationships? They like you but tell you that they're not interested because you don't seem interested in something long term. Well, the short answer to this is yes, very strongly, very much so. If I was willing to lie, right, if I was willing to just pretend that I'm wanting to be the boyfriend, if I'm willing to pretend that I'm in town a hell of a lot longer than I really am, and if I'm willing to do all of those soft dominance kind of build a connection things that will make the girl believe that it's a relationship, then I would get laid so much more. I'm thinking like 4 or 5 times more. I've had so many girls where I know she really, really wants to fuck me, and she just can't because she knows I'm going to disappear. So many times I've had dates like that, so many. Pretty much almost all my near misses, this has been why, right? Is I've gone really hard, really fast. I've really dialed up the R selection. I've very deliberately cut out all of these signals that I want to be the boyfriend, and she's gone along for the ride because it's so exciting and she's so horny and so turned on and likes me so much. And then at that last moment, at the put up or shut up moment, she's, no, I can't because you're going to leave tomorrow. And a bunch of girls have verbalized this to me as well. So anyway, a bit at PUA, you picked up something very key there, and I think that's why, we developed this R selection frame for you at Jordan, because you have to go fast, right? And logistically, it's hard to spend a lot of time out to do the boyfriend stuff. So what we've tried to do is take this weakness, which is most girls want the boyfriend, and then try to reframe it, try to leverage it and make it a strength, which is putting yourself in the secret society and making yourself her indiscretion and framing it in a certain way that she doesn't feel like a slut for doing it because you're just that kind of guy and it's quite alright to do this thing, and she's still, she's able to get a different boyfriend. So we have tried our best to get around this problem without falling into dishonesty. And, pat myself on the back, patting Tom on the back and the other guys is, I think we've done a really, really good workaround. I mean, it shouldn't even be possible, but here we are doing it. So I think, in terms of answering the question of giving you advice, well, you've just got to decide, are you going to be honest or are you going to be dishonest? Now, I'm obviously going to recommend that you be honest. I think being dishonest is really bad for you. I mean, not just because it makes you a scumbag and, causes unnecessary hurt and pain to all these girls, but also being dishonest really, really hurts your vibe. You'll notice that all the top day gamers who started out as a bit weaselly, a bit cuntish, they're all these days saying, win-win, be honest, give before you get, and so on. And it's because we learnt the hard way. We learnt the hard way is if you're going to be dishonest and you're going to be a value taker and you're going to lie to these girls and do a bait and switch on them, it makes you feel like shit over time. It massively increases your approach anxiety because you feel like a value taker. It reduces the quality of your infield work because you just give off this untrustworthy vibe. You get all sorts of drama and bullshit before and after the sex when the girls kind of figure out what's going on and realise that they've been conned. You get all sorts of blowback, and it just poisons everything. And I think what will normally happen for a guy in this situation is he'll normally start off dishonest because he's like so thirsty and so determined to get laid that he's willing to play fast and loose with, the rules of good behaviour. But then what'll happen is he'll start to get the layers. The edge will be taken off his thirst. He'll start to believe that, hang on a minute, I am attractive to women, I can get women. And then I think the pressure to be a cunt will start to subside, and you start looking a bit more inward of like, look, I want to be honest. I want to be a good guy. I want this to be win-win. I want to be able to walk into set feeling bulletproof, knowing that I'm offering real value. And then you'll make the changes and become more honest. I think it's really tough to tell a guy who might be involuntary celibate, or a guy who's only fucked like 2 girls his whole life and now he's 30 years old, a guy getting blown out in the street all the time, a guy who only might get like 1 date a month off day game. It's really hard to tell that guy, don't lie. If he knows that like lying might increase his chances of getting laid with that one particular girl, it's really, really hard to say, look mate, don't lie. And then sticks to being honest, but because his skills aren't there and his vibe isn't there, he ends up not fucking the girl, when he thinks, if I'd only bullshit her, maybe I could have fucked her. So it's up to you to plot your own way on that. But I'll say I go the 100% honest route. I just don't lie to girls. Like, there's one lie that I ever tell girls, literally just one, and that is if a teenage girl asks my age, I will say I'm 30. If a girl's over, like 20 or over, I'll give them my real age, which right now is 40. But teenage girls, I've just found that some of them like rule you out immediately if you say you're over 30. And these will be the same girls who will be very happy to fuck you on a second date and want to keep dating you you tell them the real age and they don't care. But if you tell them that real age early on, they just walk off and nothing ever happens. So that's the one lie that I will tell women. Now, with a more tactical thing is trying to square this circle, I'll say this. I'm not willing to lie and I'm not willing to give up on the arse selection, but when I do sense the girl is more towards the relationship end of things, what I will normally do is I'll emphasise the fact that I'm likely to return to that city. I'll often say to girls, look, I travel a lot and this is one of my favourite cities. I come here like several times every year, and that's true, by the way. But what it does is it emphasises the idea that I'm not going to pump and dump the girl, that I do want to see her over the longer term. I'll also normally put a bit more affection and soft dominance into the interaction. So I don't promise things like being a boyfriend. I don't future project us being boyfriend, girlfriend and all that sort of sleazy PUA stuff. But what I will do is just be nice. I'll be affectionate, right? Because a lot of the girls, when they talk about wanting a relationship, they're not really wanting the relationship. What they're wanting is to feel affection and to feel cared for. And a lot of girls will accept that on an intermittent, non-exclusive basis if you give them that plus the sex. So, like when a girl says, I'm looking for a relationship, that's sometimes a code word. What she's really looking for is affection over a longer period rather than a boyfriend, like an official boyfriend. So you can ramp up that side. What else? I think those are the two main ones. Now, of course, ramping up the affection can take many things. It can be like how you send your WhatsApp messages. It can be pinging her more than you might a normal girl. It can be just like small touches and sub-communication things that you do. It can be choosing to wait that little bit longer before you fuck her. It can mean turning down the sort of like big bad wolf sexual vibe and making yourself a little bit more Hugh Grant. Like, it can be all these sorts of things where you can present the more wholesome, affectionate image without actually telling any lies or leading her on. Right, then that's 35 minutes down, so this quick Q&A has obviously not been very quick. So let's move on. Right. Comment number 4 from Anon. Okay, right, by the way, just as a point, I don't like people commenting anonymously on my blog. Generally speaking, if you comment anonymously, I will not reply to you and I will not read your comment. I will this in this case because it's actually a very good comment, but just pick a name. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a real name. Just pick a name when you comment. I just don't like the idea of talking to people who refer to themselves as anonymous. So anyway, moving on. What does Anon say? So I'm reading straight off the comment here. Sluts and mini relationships. How do you relate a girl's sexual morale? I think morals he means there. How do you relate a girl's sexual morals to how much you are willing to invest in her? Many will argue sluts are inadequate even for mini relationships. Others will say it's just sex, it doesn't matter. Both have a point. Well, Anon, indeed they do. Both do have a point. So I'll give you my take on this. Right. I think men, or at least high self-esteem men, find it very, very difficult to give affection to a girl who sleeps around and a slut. They just find there's something really deep down. I think it's a biologically determined anti-cuckolding response, but we just hate the idea of giving ourselves emotionally to a slut. Why? Because giving yourself emotionally to a girl will bind you to her, will make her important to you, will render you vulnerable, which in a loving relationship with a high self-esteem girl's a good thing, right? It's kind of the whole point of long, stable relationships. But if she's a slut, then what's going to happen is she's almost certain to cheat on you and expose you to cuckoldry risk and also to the emotional trauma of a bad breakup with a girl you might be in love with. So, getting into a relationship with a slut it's like letting a load of jihadis into your country, right? You're just asking for trouble, and when it all blows up on you, it's your own fucking fault, right? That said, I do take issue a little bit with the word slut. Not because I think it's a bad word or anything, but I think it's rather imprecise. So I think most people, if asked to define it, would think a slut is a girl who has many sexual partners. Now, I don't think that's true. I think a slut is a girl who is willing to have sex before she's done the necessary due diligence on the guy. I think that's what a slut is. And that, bear in mind, that doesn't mean the speed with which she has sex with a guy. Because if a guy can jump through the appropriate hoops, demonstrate the appropriate qualities to the girl, and move her along the courtship ritual appropriately, and he's able to do this very, very fast, then that's fine. She's not a slut. The problem is if the girl basically will jump into bed with a guy who hasn't done the necessary groundwork to earn his way into her pants. That's a slut. So, what would be examples of this? Well, I'll give an example from my own 2015. Back in May, I same day laid actually, these two things both happened on the same day, so let's just tell the story of the day. So I was in Warsaw. This was in May. I had gone over by myself, but Tom was in town with a student, the guy on his Real Hank Moody podcast. So we saw a little bit of each other, and but he's basically coaching every day. So anyway, I went out on about, I don't know, it was about my 4th or 5th day in town, something like that. And I was walking up by the university. I opened a girl who turned out to be 17. Really, really hot. Really, she looked like a good girl. She really did. But anyway, really hot. I'd say high 8. Fucking stunning, basically. And 17. So anyway, she hooked really strong, really fast. So my first thought was, fucking hell, this is a yes girl. Fucking hell, this is lucky, Nick. Well done. So I bounced her to the nearest cafe. We were on a street full of cafes. So we sat in a cafe. Her English wasn't very good, but right from off, it just seemed really, really on, like super on. Like all my alarm bells were going off. The spider sense was buzzing. I was like, fucking hell, I found a girl massively into me who's really horny. Like, this looks like the same day later. And this was about 10 minutes in, I was thinking this. So we had a drink. I bought her a cocktail. Benefit of hindsight, it was off, right? You know how we often say like strippers and stuff will throw off fake IOIs? Well, I think what she was doing was she was throwing me fake IOIs. But because of the situation, it was just another day game stop. I was in good vibe. I was doing good game. It never crossed my mind that the IOIs would be fake, because as far as I was concerned, I was doing the work to earn them. I just thought, I got lucky. I found a girl who likes me. Right time, right place. But I think benefit of hindsight, she was throwing off fake IOIs. She was trying to play me. So anyway, after one drink, we're talking about literally about 30 minutes. I say, come on, let's go for a walk. And now I literally walk up to my apartment. It takes about 5 minutes to get back to my apartment. But we're talking about a 35-minute bounce back of a really, really hot 17-year-old girl. So you can imagine walking up the stairs, getting the elevator. I was absolutely fucking buzzing. I was thinking, fuck me, Nick, like, what a score. This is going to be a story for the ages, this one. Like, well done, Nick, right? I was like, the closest thing I can describe it is, imagine, like Casino Royale, the James Bond movie, right at the end when he's fighting, when he's playing poker against Le Chiffre in the casino, and it's like millions and millions of like pounds worth of chips on the table, thrown into the pot, and as we subsequently find out, James Bond has a royal flush. And even better, his opponent has like a four of a kind, right? It's like the best possible situation you can get in poker, right? Where your opponent has a stupidly good hand, which he thinks is like basically the nuts, and you have a slightly better hand, and there's loads of money going in, right? It's a perfect situation. Well, that's how I felt taking this girl into my room. Beautiful, everything I ever wanted. 17, super hot, my type, really fast, really into me, throwing off IOIs. I was thinking, fucking hell, well done. This will be your crowning achievement so far. So we go into my apartment. I put the computer on. We'll put YouTube on. She comes in. She's sitting next to me. Everything's great. Her thighs up against my thighs. I put her legs over my legs. And I think this is all great. I just have to kiss her, and then it'll probably be a little bit of LMR, whatever. But this is it. I'm just closing the deal now. Then what happens? She suddenly gets a bit weird, a bit stiff. I mean, she accepts it at first. I mean, I don't kiss her, but she accepts the legs over. She accepts all the touch. Then she suddenly gets a bit weird, a bit stiff. Gets up, goes out on my balcony, smokes a cigarette, and looks out over the skyline for about 5 minutes. Bear in mind, English isn't very good, so it's not easy to just make small talk. Then she comes in, and using Google Translate, she basically says, you have to pay me. Like, what? Come on. Because at this point, I didn't believe the IOIs have been fake. Right? I was like, come on, don't be silly. And she's like, no, you have to pay. And I was seeing in Google, like, Translate, right, this was all weird, right, looking at each other, passing the phone back and forth with these messages, basically arguing. I was like, look, I don't pay for sex. And she says, no, I'm not going to have sex, you have to pay to kiss me. And I was like, God. So I was replying, like, that's even worse, don't be silly, I like you, you like me, forget this rubbish. And she's like, no. So in the end, I try and escalate her anyway. She doesn't have it, and she basically walks out. And then, so I just say, right, leave. I don't even get out off the sofa. She stands up, puts her shoes on, walks out, slams the door, never see her again. Right. So that girl's a slut. Right. Why is she a slut? Because at some point, very, very early on, she looked at me and she thought, I will trade sexual favours for money. Right. I suppose technically you'd say she's more of a whore, but and probably the idea of her saying like she won't have sex, only kiss, that was probably just a negotiating tactic. It was really weird, right? Look, 17-year-old girl looking like that, just on her way to fucking wherever, walking down the street, she wasn't soliciting or anything, and then she comes up with that. That's slut behaviour, it's whore behaviour, it's disgusting, right? But what happened next? What happened next is I was sitting on my sofa thinking, what the fuck just happened there? That's literally the first time it's ever happened to me, right? It's the second time a girl's asked for money, but the first time was several years earlier with a girl who was literally an escort. I just didn't know she was an escort until halfway through the date. So it was essentially the first time it had really happened to me. Completely blindsided me, so I was just sitting shaking my head, but I was kind of laughing because I'd been having a good day. I'd had a bunch of leads over the previous few days. It was beginning of the holiday. I was in a good mood. So I walk out of my building on Chamilnia, get on, which is like a little kind of pedestrian street with loads of cafes on in the centre of Warsaw. And who do I bump into but Tom and his student? So I'm like, Tom, you wouldn't fucking believe what just happened to me. And I relate to him the story. And he's laughing. He's like, well, shit happens, right? Laughing and all that. It's day game, whatever. It's all in the game. And I'm just shaking my head. And then he goes off with the student, and I wander off. So what happens? About an hour later, maybe less, I get a text message from a Polish guy. I'll not name him because I'm not sure if his real name is public yet. So anyway, he knows who he is. So yeah, he's one of the better day gamers in Poland, and I think he's a coach now, like does the London day game style. So anyway, I had never met him before at this point, but Tom had met him, and he said, "Look, Nick, you should have a coffee with this guy. He's a solid day gamer. He's a good guy. I think it might interest you." So Tom had passed on his number. So I messaged him and I was saying, "Hey, look, I've got a bit of time to kill. Do you fancy a coffee?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So I met up with him and at the shopping mall, and we literally speak for about 2 minutes, right? Say, "Hey, I'm Nick." He's like, "Hi, I'm this dude," and chat literally. And I think, "Should we just walk around a bit?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And literally after less than 2 minutes in, I see a 19-year-old Belarusian girl just standing outside a shop, tapping on her phone, looking like she's waiting for someone. This is, I don't know, maybe 4 p.m, 5 p.m. So I open it. Now I just think it's a throwaway set, nothing's going to happen. Now what actually happens is the same day later, and it was one of my, probably, maybe the highlight of the year. So anyway, really hot girl, really nice. I really like the girl, and ended up having a mini relationship with her. And she's got a boyfriend now, so we don't talk much, but I think it's just going to be one of those girls that never quite goes away. So anyway, I end up dating her, have to meet this other day gamer later afterwards to have the drinks. Anyway, I date her, I take her to Costa, and I run really, really tight game. I'd say she's a maybe girl, but she very quickly warms up, and she would tell me later that about 30 minutes into the coffee she thought, "Oh, I could have sex with this guy." So anyway, after half an hour in Costa, I start walking her closer to my apartment, and we go to another cafe. Then, no, it's not a cafe. Yeah, it's a cafe that serves alcohol, so we have like a little drink each, and then about an hour and a half in, and we're about, 30 meters from my building at this point, my apartment building. I say, "Look, let's go watch like dogs do backflips on YouTube type thing." She's like, "Okay." I can tell she's nervous, but really intrigued. She's really excited by it all. And we've got to know each other very well at this point, because our English is quite good, and we've done all the stuff, like literally just following the model exactly, just at high speed. But I know a hell of a lot about her by this, about her hopes, her dreams, what she's into, what she wants out of life, what her background's like, and she knows a hell of a lot about me at this point, right? In fact, the only thing she doesn't really know is that I do this for a living. So I walk her up. We watch a bit of YouTube. About 10 minutes in, I pull her a bit closer. She accepts it. So I think, right, pull the trigger, kiss her. Within 10 minutes, I'm fucking her. Absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So, after the sex, 20 minutes hanging out, then she leaves. And I think, okay, well done, same day later, well done, Nick. I was very happy with myself. Now, but the main thing I was thinking is, what a fucking turnaround compared to having that 17-year-old storming out the door, right? Like, another time and a place that might have been me done for the day, So anyway, it was one of these really volatile up and down roller coaster days. And so obviously I sent my +1 to Tom. I was like, "You wouldn't fucking believe what just happened." And so anyway, why is this relevant to this conversation? To Anon's question about sluts and mini relationships. Well, if you use the popular society term of slut, you'd say this girl, this Belarusian girl, was a slut. Right? You'd say, look, she just like fucked a strange guy 2 hours after meeting him in the middle of the day. Right? Like a guy who was 21 years older than that. You'd say like, she's a slut. Well, no, because what would subsequently happen is I met her about 2 days later. She came around one evening, had sex again, and she actually said to me, right, this is quite funny, she said to me afterwards, she's like, you know what? Oh no, hang on. What happened first? Is that I started interviewing her. I want to know her sexual history, and I was like, look, like how many guys have you slept with? Now I was expecting it to be, I don't know, 6, 7 maybe. She just seemed too comfortable, with going through the whole same day lay model. Then she said, oh, you're the second guy. I was like, look, I don't believe you. No way. You were like way too comfortable. You didn't freak out at all during when we met and had sex. And I was like, she was like, no. I was like, I had a boyfriend for a couple of years and then you. I was like, I just don't believe you. And she's, but like, I've slept with girls. I was like, all right. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I've slept with maybe 5 or 6 girls. So that suddenly put it into perspective as like she has actually been seduced or been seducing, a bunch of times before me. It's just mostly girls. And although she actually said to me, she's like, oh, but after you, I think I'm going to give up on girls. I want men now. And yes, and sure enough, after me, she ended up getting a proper boyfriend. Right. But what does this mean for sluttiness? Is basically I did good game. I went through all the hoops, I did all the work, everything with this girl, and she had sex with me because she really fancied me. She wanted a bit of an adventure, which was out of character for her. And there's no reason at all to suppose she's just going to be jumping in bed with other people. And, I know other guys who've been in, I've been in a similar situation many times. I know other guys who've pulled off very similar things to that, same day lays. I was just looking through a blog yesterday about a guy who hasn't even been doing day game very long, but he did manage to same day lay a teenage virgin. It does happen, right? It does happen. In fact, I think all the top day gamers have same day laid a teenage virgin before now. It's like the toilet fuck. It's like a sort of like a rite of passage, right? And my own experience and other guys' experience, we've literally had 2-hour bounce backs and lays with girls who had sex with one guy before us, and they might 4 years later we're still in touch with them and they've only had sex with 2 guys since. So I think when you talk about sluts, it's not about the speed with which they have sex. And I don't think it's even about how many guys they have sex with now. Of course, if they have sex with like 25 guys, well, yeah, she's a slut. But I don't think there's a lot of difference between a girl who has sex with 2 guys and a girl who has sex with 6 guys. Like, a lot of it will just be, like, she might have really fallen for a guy, she had sex with him, and then the relationship didn't work. Or she really fell for a guy, she had sex with him, and then he pumped and dumped her. It can be that as well. It can be that the girl's basic stable personality traits is not slutty, but say she's gone to a new big city, she's had problems, she's had instability, so she's just been a bit vulnerable and she happened to bump into a good player who fucked her. Whereas another girl in exactly the same situation might not have bumped into that player and therefore she wouldn't have had sex, right? So one girl has a higher notch count than the other, but they're psychologically the same girl at a circumstance. Now, my personal view is there's no problem dating sluts so long as you don't give them affection. That's basically what it comes down to. Or more correctly, you set a boundary of your affection and you go in with your eyes wide open and you don't expect from the girl something that she's not capable or willing to deliver. So generally I prefer girls who are chaste, the tighter part of younger heart tighter. I like them that they're chaste, that they haven't had a lot of guys, that they're not really sexually promiscuous. I prefer that personally, but I have had some mini relationships, like sex-based casual sex relationships with girls who are a bit fucking slutty. They've had like, I can think of one girl in Latvia who I fucked her this year. She was 18-year-old, but I was actually the 9th guy to fuck her. She'd fucked 8 Spanish guys on holidays in Spain before me, she said. So that's a slut. That's a slut, right? I mean, she's already got to that age, 18. Imagine what she's going to be like at 22 if she's not in serious long-term relationships. But girls like this, the good thing about sluts is they don't give you that weird prissy princessness. Like I think these sorts of sluts, they just view sex as it's just something you do, something pleasurable that you do, that when you get a bit thirsty for it, you slake your thirst of it. And there's not all these like moral connotations to it. It's not this massive impact upon your life. It's not like a life-changing event like that might happen if you fuck a chaste virgin. They just think, oh, it's just something you do, right? Doesn't mean they're going to do a shitload of it, but they do a lot more than normal girls will do. And what this gives you is they're just kind of free about it. The closest example I can think of is imagine talking to a pro fighter, like a pro boxer or a pro MMA guy about violence. Talk to them about street fighting. It just doesn't have that same visceral emotional impact on them than it does on some, like 22-year-old hipster faggot who's never had a fight in his life, right? If that little hipster faggot, if you punch him, he's going to have a mental breakdown. He's going to collapse, hold his fucking cheek, curl up in the fetal position, start crying, report you to the police. You'll need post-traumatic stress disorder counselling. You probably won't come out of the house for the next month, for him, just getting punched is like a huge deal because he's inexperienced and he's got all of these connotations about it. So that'll also mean in any situation where he thinks violence is going to happen, he'll act weird, right? He can't be himself because he's all twisted by this weirdness. And I think it's the same with whereas like a pro fighter, he's just, you just punched him, that's no big fucking deal, The guy will be thinking, I get hit hard on that 20 times in the gym, it's no big deal, right? They view violence more as a set of technical skills to accomplish an objective rather than they feel it as this bubbling red rage of, like a big ego point to prove. And I think sluts are a bit like that. The chaste girls, it's massive and it's emotional. I think they often be all like weird and cranky about it, whereas slut girls, they're just chill, they're relaxed, like, yeah, whatever, dude. They're like, the dude in the Big Lebowski, it's like, yeah, it's only sex, it's something I do when I feel like it. So those situations, you don't get much drama. They accept that you're going to be non-exclusive, that they're going to be non-exclusive, and that they don't really have any hold over you or vice versa, and you just don't get a lot of drama. So if you only want a time-limited mutual convenience relationship, I think go for it. I mean, don't marry her, obviously, but you don't want to be marrying a girl who's that casual about sex. But many relationships, fine, go for it. Right, then what a surprise! I managed to fill out an hour rambling on. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. Maybe I'll continue on with the Q&A later, but I think an hour is enough. For now, I hope that helps. And that was episode 20 of the Womanizers Bible. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.